Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Welcome to the show. I'm Eoin Devereux, news and sports reporter with the Banner Press. And thank you, as I said, for taking a little bit of your time and spending it with us. Joined this week by news reporter Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, good to have you in.
Good to be in here and sitting in the chair again for the show.
That's right.
Good paper to go through, of course, again, so...
And the good thing is during the winter episodes, because we got some, this is a nice warm room, and during the winter it's nice and cozy.
Yeah, I know. During the summer it's a bit of a struggle because, obviously when we're not taping the show, the AC is on, keeps the room nice and cool. But it's too much background noise to have the AC running while we're doing the show. And this is a small room, so it heats up. Old building too, so it gets toasty in here pretty quick when we're filming. So a nice change of pace for the winter season. It's very comfortable.
But in November, it's just right, and especially when you have weather like we've had as of late. The snow really came in, and with the snow, of course, some very chilly conditions. I'm not as used to the cold weather as I used to be living up north. But there's a lot of people in and around our community who just thrive in it. People who like to snowmobile and people who like to ski. And that's part of our front page for this week's edition of the Banner Press. A bunch of young people enjoying the winter weather. Now, you might not be able to get a close look at it here, and that's why you need to get a physical copy of the Neepawa Banner Press. It can be picked up anywhere in and around Neepawa. And if you can't get a physical copy, you can check it out on mywestman.ca. Now, on the front page, you'll be able to see a bunch of youngsters out at the Langford Neepawa Winter Park enjoying some skiing. It's perfect skiing weather right now out there. Casper, have you ever gone out and done any types of either downhill or cross country?
I have in the past, yeah. It's been quite some time since I've done that. I think the last downhill skiing thing I did was actually back in high school. And in terms of cross-country type skiing, a few years ago now, is a pretty enjoyable experience, honestly, being out on that trail. And it's a nice place to go, all the trees, all the nature and everything, and just have a good time out on the trails and get some exercise in and enjoy the winter air.
It is a great physical activity that you can get out there, as Casper said. Enjoy some of the winter air, get a little bit of exercise going. Now, a story was submitted with the pictures. Very appreciative of that. You can find that story on page A10, talking about the opening of the winter park, the Langford Neepawa Winter Park for the season. And we're already deep into the winter season. It feels as though we have as much snow right now as we had all of last winter. Maybe I'm not remembering right, but what is your take?
It certainly does feel like that, actually, because last year, to my memory, we didn't really get a whole lot of snow throughout the season. And, just recently, with the snowfall that we had, it feels like that was all of last year in like 1 or 2 days. So it'll be interesting to see what we get later on in the season in terms of snowfall. Haven't had much for the past little bit now. It's sort of stayed steady. Of course, the colder weather is coming in. It's hitting -20 now, so we'll have to see what the winter brings in terms of snowfall. But great conditions out there, out on the trails right now. So definitely take a step out and enjoy yourself for a while. Take a nice, well-deserved break from everything.
That's right. Take advantage of it. If you're a snowmobiler, if you're a skier, or anything like that, it's really perfect out there for you right now. And if you're not one of those, you stay inside, you stay by the fireplace, you turn on the TV, and you watch some quality programming right here on NAC TV. Put a free plug in there, just throw that in there, But it's that type of year, a nice little bit of cocoa and maybe some tea and just sitting down and reading the paper as well. It's more serious story we're going to shift our attention to right now. But fortunately, it's a serious story that seems to be taking a positive turn. And that is in regard to the COVID-19 numbers, first off at the Neepawa Health Center, but a new part of this story is the confirmation of cases at Country Meadows Personal Care Home. Now, I know that sounds a little bit scary to you right now if you were not in the loop on this. That was announced on Monday of this week that there were confirmed cases at Country Meadows. And because of that, that facility, along with 4 others in the province, had to be declared outbreaks. Now, that does sound scary. Don't get me wrong. But fortunately, because of the definitions of what an outbreak is at a personal care home, an outbreak only is defined as 2 or more. And they only had 2 confirmations of cases at Country Meadows. And the fortunate thing, Casper, is that as we sit here right now, already one of those cases has recovered. So it could have been a whole heck of a lot worse, couldn't it?
Yeah, it was very relieving to see the change in numbers with this update. Because, of course, as people have seen, not just with this initial outbreak, but of course in the area, there's been some places that have been hit by COVID-19 cases, particularly care homes like the one in Neepawa here. And, you know, people in those facilities, they're some of our community's most vulnerable, of course. You know, they're further up there in their years as compared to me. And, you know, with their age, they might have some other issues going on as well. And so that causes a lot of worry. But with the recovery and all of that, of several individuals in the facility, of course, with the numbers being brought down now, it's very, very pleasant to see that. And hopefully we'll see that around the rest of the area as well.
That's right. None of us want to be dealing with this situation. That's a given, of course. But it's the reality of the situation. We are going to have to deal with this. And as I was saying to Casper just before we went on air here, in my estimation, it's something we will be dealing with in a rolling sort of cycle. I feel like maybe we'll be back here 2 months from now. Maybe we'll be back here 5 or 8 months from now. But this is probably the reality we're going to have to deal with. What's going to be very significant is how we get through it when we have to face it. And this is an example, fortunately for Country Meadows, and we talked to representatives there. They were very forthcoming in terms of how the process has been for them to get everything situated, locked down as it were, and keep people safe. We're very pleased. We thank them, those individuals, for sort of sharing that information with us, quite honestly. And again, this is the opinion of myself. It's not the opinion of the Neepawa Banner Press. It's not the opinion of NACTV. It's my personal opinion here. Prairie Mountain Health has been very forthcoming with that, and I genuinely wish Southern Health Santé Sud was more like Prairie Mountain Health in that way. It's like pulling teeth, trying to get information from Southern Health, quite honestly, and it's not just due to COVID-19. I had worked very closely with them when I was working as a reporter in Portage La Prairie for many years. And even the most ubiquitous, Casper, information you wanted from them, you had to go through like 5 different people and 3 different emails to get a yes or a no. And in a situation like this, that's not right, because we have a situation at Valley View Lodge in Plumas, we have a situation in Gladstone, and it's just frustrating not to be able to share the information with the general public like that. But again, like I said, that's my opinion. It's not to be, this is not the opinion of the Banner and Press. It's not the opinion of NACTV. If you disagree, it's me you disagree with. So, and again, I might be wrong. Maybe they just don't like me. They wouldn't be the first.
Well, they must not like Kira either. She tried real hard there while I was away on holidays previously, just recently. But yeah, no, it's very much unfortunate because understandably, of course, you know, the organization, they want to go through all the proper channels and whatnot, but having Prairie Mountain compared to Santé Sud, it's kind of, I'm not sure what to call it, but it kind of makes you wonder, like, what's the difference here? Like, how is it so easy to get answers from Paramount Health, but not the other. And like Eoin said, this is very important information that we want to get out there properly to the readers, the community, not just in Neepawa, but the surrounding area as well, because we have a really large coverage area. So it not being able to do that in the way that we would like to, it's obviously provides a bit of a roadblock for us. And we just have to do the best that we can with what we got, you know. And these things happen sometimes for one reason or another, not just with big organizations like this, but with other things as well. You just have to try your best, put the word out there that, hey, we want to contact you for this. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Thankfully, most of the time it does work out. But in this case, just that wasn't it. So.
Right. Now, one other bit of information we're going to share with you that is not in this edition of the Neepawa Banner Press, but it's news that just came in just before we sat down to record today's episode. The latest numbers from the Neepawa Health Center, very positive. If you've been an avid and consistent reader of the Banner Press, you know that there was a outbreak at the health center. Portions of it had to be locked down as we speak, still locked down to the general public. But with these results and these numbers, that could be changing very soon. As of right now, there is just one active case of COVID-19 at the Neepawa Health Center, considering the numbers they were at just this time last week. I mean, that is very positive. And even more positive, Casper, no fatalities, no deaths related to COVID-19 have been reported in Neepawa from this. That's fantastic.
Absolutely, that's a big relief. I know we did unfortunately see previously that the situation in Gladstone had no deaths at the time that we received the numbers that we printed in the paper. And then unfortunately sometime after we recorded the show, there were some deaths that ended up occurring. So it was very unfortunate there, and my condolences obviously to the families of those who have passed away. And I'm thankful, of course, that the people here can rest easier on that.
Right. We're going to shift our attention to other stories as well. And it is nice to be able to talk about other things. There was such a period of time over 2020 and 2021 at times where it was just COVID all the time. But it's nice to get back to some version of normal. And this next story is a version of that, and a real positive story, I think, potentially for the town of Neepawa. We talked a little bit about it in last week's newspaper, talking about the development of a new housing development in Neepawa near the water tower. It would be focused more along the lines of modular homes. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the concept, it is explained in the article, but I'll just give you the Coles Notes version of it here right now. Modular home essentially is just a building or structure that is built in a factory, built off of location essentially, and then moved to the location and then put down on a foundation. It's not a trailer park home. There's too many people who still think it's trailer parks. It's not. It's a house, and some very, very nice houses. And the thing is that this development that it could go forward would be 144 individual lots in this area, 144 individual homes. How big a game changer, Casper, do you think that is for a growing community such as ours?
Oh, big for sure. We've talked about it, of course, last show because there was a small article on this at that time as well. But Neepawa has a steadily growing population, and even now, like, the demand for houses is pretty high, just like any sort of residence at all, whether it be renting or owning. So to have this development come in will be a benefit for sure if it gets approved. Because I know it's certainly a good amount of people that are looking to either get something new or downsize perhaps a little bit from a full house, or, you know, just get a starter home because they want to get their foot in the door, have their own place, and sort of start their life in that way.
That's right. You bring up a very valid point there, Casper. This is something for retirees and as a starter home for young families as well. Because of Neepawa's requirements, it still has to be 1,000 square feet, the domicile in question, and that is still a huge space. I've actually said this to a couple of representatives from the town and anyone else who'll listen. 1,000 square feet, even for someone like me, is just way too big and unnecessary. But it's the rules of the town of Neepawa, so it is what it is. I wish they'd change them personally, because you can still have a beautiful home at like 700 square feet or 800 square feet. I have family in Brandon that have a home. It's a slab. It's 890 square feet, and it's 3-bedroom, individual kitchen, a bath, dining area, living room, all the amenities. If you were to take that house, very nice house, and move it and put it in Neepawa right now, you wouldn't be allowed. It's too small. You need to add 110 more square feet into it, despite the fact you can have 3 people living in there comfortably. But those are the rules. That's the way it is right now. That's a different topic altogether. So this is about the positivity that these modular homes could have. If you want to find out a little bit more, you can find it on page A2 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. Very pleased to be able to share this. This could be a game changer. It really could. And it's slightly different from the development at the CN property, not just in size, but in how it would be developed as well. But you're going to have to read the article to sort of get the full concept behind it. It's very interesting. It's something that's going to make things a little bit easier for its development and its creation. So we could see movement on this a lot quicker, definitely a lot quicker than what we saw on the CN property. But we're going to follow that story and keep following it as it develops. I think it's going to be something really great for the community. There was other items. This was a big part of the most recent town council meeting for the town of Neepawa, but there were other goings on as well. I was going to write something up on it, but I was away on last Friday with a cold. Just a cold, you know. It seems like you gotta put that little preface on anything whenever you have a sneeze or a cough or a sniffle. It was just a cold. That's when you, Casper, stepped up and went through council and grabbed some very notable information. Walk us through that.
Yeah, of course, like Eoin said, the modular housing development was the bigger part of council. So I admit this is a lot smaller, but there's a couple quick notes in the town council meeting from November 16th there. Probably the biggest of which was included in unfinished business, and that was in regards to Park Lake, if I got the name correct. Mm-hmm. I sometimes forget what it's called, I'll be honest. I always refer to it as the bird sanctuary area. So up in that area in town here, obviously there's ongoing work in regards to that after the flooding that happened on Canada Day that year, and obviously the dam being gone and that road being washed out that we used to go across, that obviously there's something temporary there now to go to that area. So that project is ongoing, and they're working on plans, the designs for the new dam, all the spillways and whatnot that make up the dam. Some revisements have been made to the spillway design. And that is that they're going to have a 45-meter spillway in the middle with 2 50-meter ones on either side of that, to sort of give more variation to levels and whatnot. So that'll be replacing the old design, which I have noted in there as well.
Very significant decision as well, because that's going to sort of help in ensuring that some once in a century type event, such as has happened to make this, can't happen again.
Yeah. It'll definitely sort of help lower the risk of that type of event. And of course, with the changes here, that does affect the landscape surrounding that. So they're reevaluating how best to handle the surrounding area in terms of, like, for example, what trees might need to be cleared, etc. and building things back up again. So they're looking at all of that. And another quick thing for 2022 is that there are some elm trees that have been identified for removal, a total of 17. So those are planning to get removed next year from the community, just to help with, lessening the risk of Dutch elm disease, because that is a serious thing that needs to be mitigated. So that's what that will be dealing with. And that's sort of the important cliff notes there. But there's a couple other quick things in there you might want to take a look at, of course.
That's right. We go to council, so you don't have to. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's, council obviously has some important things in there, but it's certainly dry. I've sat through it, of course, just now, and then once or twice before while Eoin's been away. So, and you do it frequently, so.
That's right. That's right. But again, it's one of those things of, even though it may come off as dry, it is the most important and most directly impactful of the 3 levels of government towards you and your daily life. So even though you might think it's a little, basic and vanilla and generic and a little boring, it's still very important. It's something you need to pay attention to. Because there's 1 or 2 times where it's like, we'll get calls from people who'll be like, oh, when did they decide this? About 4 months ago they decided. They made a big deal about it. I didn't know. Well, you should have paid a little bit more attention then, But that's it. That's our council update for another week. They'll do it again soon.
Soon, yes.
Yeah.
Like what? Is it like next month they have their next one?
It'll be the first Tuesday of December.
Right.
So coming up next week, going to be there. And don't forget, if you don't want to read the words, that's fine. You can still watch it right here on NAC TV. And I'll say this for the council, they're efficient. They get it down to a science. They got it down to about a half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour tops. There have been other councils I've covered over the years in other cities that it just drags out. You're sitting there an hour or 2 just wondering, God, did I make the right job decision in my life? God, I could be at home right now.
At some point, enough is enough. So Thank you, Neepawa Town Council, for keeping it as brief as possible.
Yeah, no. All right, let's talk about one other thing that has some impact here in Neepawa. It's a story that was written by Ken Waddell. He's been working on this for a while. An individual who is a consistent reader of the paper sent a letter in citing various concerns and issues with the town and some of the situation regarding sewer blockage issues. Essentially, some of the rules that are in place are that if there's a blockage due to tree roots or other elements, if it's within a certain distance to your home, it's your responsibility. Even if it's not your fault, it's your responsibility. And he was not all that pleased with that. He's been dealing with this issue for quite some time. Ken Waddell did a little bit of research into it to find out some of the information, some of the reasoning behind it, and what some of the things an individual might be able to do or can't do under the circumstances. And I can understand the town's perspective on this. I can relate to that. I know that you don't want to set precedents on certain things, and I can understand the homeowner's perspective on this as well. It's a tough situation to have to deal with when you're a property owner. I actually had to deal with this myself when I was renting Casper in Brandon, because I had roots growing into where I was renting my home, and I had to get them cut out. Except the problem is I didn't have any trees in my front lawn. My neighbor had trees, so it was their trees that essentially had grown the roots so much that they'd gone in there. But it was my responsibility because it was my line essentially, and it was my check that had to pay for it. The city said, "Well, sorry about that, but what are we going to do?" It's one of those situations where everybody nobody gets what they want.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. So obviously the town is trying to cover their butts, of course, with the stuff that they have set up. But yeah, something like this. And it was noted in the article, too, actually, that sewer backup valves are, I think, required for at least new developments. But I think it's just a general rule, at least these days. But not every place in the community has a sewer backup valve for one reason or another. And major renovations, of course, do call for putting one in there. So you don't have, in a lot of cases, that protection. And, you know, it's not your fault, but town's not covering it. And for the most part, from the sounds of it, like, insurance won't cover it either.
Yeah.
So you're left with not only the mess, but whatever astronomical bills that you might have as well. And in a similar vein, of course, we had the flooding of our basement here of all the mud and stuff because, well, the line had to be adjusted for water, whatever it was, a while back there, just out front of the building here. Mm-hmm. And that had been done, don't remember when, and then packed in with gravel. And it sat there for so long. Yep. I don't remember how long it sat there.
A fair amount of time.
Too long.
A fair amount of time for a Main Street sidewalk.
Yeah.
If we're being honest.
Yeah, especially because it had the sidewalk in there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we ended up eventually getting a lot of rainfall. And of course, since it wasn't paved, all of that mud from the gravel flooded into the basement of the Neepawa Banner Press, and it was a mess. Like, it went all the way from the front of the building to the back, and it was just a hassle to clean up. Thankfully, you know, we obviously had our one staff member, Matthew, on hand to help with a lot of that. Did a lot of scrubbing of the floors and whatnot. But, you know, if that had been paved over sooner, dealt with the sidewalk a lot sooner, then that wouldn't have happened. But it sat there for so long. And Ken, rightly so, was quite furious about that, and went to town just like, are you going to pay for this? And they're like, no, it's not our deal. It's not our deal. And I'm like, really? There was nothing we could do about it. It was literally like, the town and whoever else like deals with this stuff, like, why?
Man, I like this. You're kind of fighting Ken's battle right now here. You know, Ken will be getting a phone call maybe from the town. It's like, what are you doing? I don't know what you're talking about. You know, but
yeah, it was just sort of baffling to me that was the case. You know, but I don't know. Maybe there's other reasons to it. I'm not sure, but either way, we got it cleaned up, and eventually that spot was paved over and the sidewalk was dealt with, and it looks a lot nicer now, and it's good. So
that's right. Now, if you want to read that story, you can find it in the A section of this week's paper. We're running out of time. We didn't even get to the Farmer's Advocate. It's our last Farmer's Advocate of the season. Thank you for all the supporters and the sponsors and the advertisers for that. And thank you to Kira and to Casper and Diane and me for doing all the time and effort to put those things together. We'll see you in the spring when it's time to seed for the Farmer's Advocate. And again, Casper, thanks for coming in today.
Absolutely, always a pleasure to be here, and looking forward to the next one.
And thank you for taking a little bit of your time as well. Come in and sit down with us. If you have story ideas, you can contact us at news@neepawabanner.com or at 476-3401. Any story ideas would be appreciated. We try to get to them as much as we can, and definitely always appreciative of the feedback, both good and bad. So once again, thank you very much, and thank you for tuning in to NAC TV and the story behind the stories.